Hi Naeem, welcome to the peer interview session. Today we will be focusing on your understanding and practical knowledge of full stack development with Python. I will be asking you 5 technical questions covering backend and frontend and integration aspects. Please feel free to explain your thought process and give examples where possible. We will also be joined by a panel of observers who will share their feedback after the session.
Thank you, Sukesh. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the questions. I will done my best of explaining my answers clearly.
Okay, let's go to the interview questions. Your first question is, what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous programming in Python, and when would you use each?
Synchronous programming executes tasks one after another, blocking the program until a task is completed. Asynchronous program using asynchronous with and await in Python, allowing the program to handle other tasks while the waiting of an operation like IO input output to complete. I could use asynchronous when dealing with high latency operations like API callings or file input output, where waiting could waste resources.
Okay, Naeem, let's go to your second question. How
Okay.
would you design a REST API using Flask or Fast API, and how do you handle authentication?
I prefer Fast API for its speed and built-in documentation. I define routes using decorators and the pedantic models for requesting validation for authentication. I use JWT. Implement a login route to issuing to token and a secure routes using a dependency that verifies the tokens and the check user roles.
Okay. Can you explain how React interacts with your Python backend and how data flows between them?
React handles the front-end UI and makes a HTTP request to the Python backend using the fetching or XOS. The backend exposes the endpoints, processes request accessing the database if need, and the send JSON responses back. React then update the UI based on the response using the state management.
Okay. What are some strategies to optimize performance in both backend and front end?
For front-end, I use the code splitting, lazy loading, and the memorization to avoid unnecessary re-rendering. And the backend, I use the caching, databases, indexing, and asynchronous calls to improve throughput. Profiling the tools help identifying bottleneck in the both layers.
Okay. Can you walk us through a full stack project you have built technologies used and architecture?
I built an inventory management system using a React Fast API backend and the PostgreSQL SQL. The backend has a RESTful endpoints with the JWT auth, and I used Docker for the containerization and the negation and the reverse proxy. The frontend fetched the data from the backend using our Exos and the display inventories states using the charts.
Okay, Naeem, demonstrated strong knowledge across the full stack. Your async explanation was spot on. I appreciated the structured approach in his API design and use of real world tech like Redis and Docker. You could expand a bit more on error handling strategies. Great performance overall. Okay, observers, give your feedback.
Ayum explained technical terms clearly and confidently. I liked the flow of his full stack projects. I suggest give a bit more instead to challenges to faced and he solved them.
Yeah, you have given a solid answers, Nayum, especially around data flow and authentication. I would encourage him also mention testing strategies in the backend design.
Good understanding shows a backend optimization. Would be better if he provided more details on front-end performance material on the tool uses.
Ivan,
Thank you for your all valuable feedbacks.